Enemies don't truly despise your voice. What unsettles them is the silence that comes after your strength has already spoken. That silence is what exposes everything they tried to hide. Because the moment a chosen one steps forward, every unstable ego around them starts to react. Not out of logic, but out of recognition. Deep down, they feel it, even if they pretend they don't. The universe has a way of reminding people who they are standing in front of. And when you enter that space, it becomes obvious you're not just different, you're beyond reach. Your presence alone dismantles the illusion of their confidence. They may act composed, but their reactions betray them. Imagine a shadow trying to dominate the sun. It spreads, it stretches, it covers the ground as if it has control. For a brief moment, it feels significant. But the instant the sun intensifies its light, the shadow disappears without resistance, as if it was never there. That's what opposition to your energy looks like. Not real rivalry, just temporary darkness pretending it matters. It doesn't fade because you engage it. It fades because it was never built to withstand your presence in the first place. And here's a truth that cuts through everything. People don't obsess over what they don't fear. They don't monitor what they consider irrelevant. They don't fixate on what carries no impact on their reality. So when attention is placed on you, when your name is mentioned, when your actions are watched, when your movement is tracked, it's not admiration. It's recognition of influence they can't ignore. And that alone is proof of direction. Ordinary energy doesn't get reactions like that. Only something powerful does. The universe doesn't assign attention to what is meaningless. It only highlights what has the ability to shift things. That's why you're noticed. That's why you're discussed. That's why you're felt, even in absence. Before this continues, take a moment to acknowledge something simple. Your presence is already part of the message spreading forward, not through effort, but through impact. And remember this, chosen one, you are not reacting to the world, you are influencing it. You're part of a force that refuses to dim its own light. Now, let's get back to our topic, because this video isn't about ego, hype, or fantasy. It's about the brutal reality behind why your enemies break down the moment you step into your power. The title says it all. Chosen ones, get ready to silence every enemy forever. And that silence doesn't come from yelling, fighting, or proving yourself. It comes from understanding what you are, why you were chosen, and what the universe placed inside you that they can't touch, can't copy, and can't destroy. The truth is simple. Chosen ones make people uncomfortable not because of what you do, but because of what you represent. You walk into a room and immediately become the unspoken mirror that exposes their weakness, their jealousy, their fake confidence, and the lies they told themselves just to get through the day. You trigger the insecurities they've been hiding their entire lives, and instead of facing their own darkness, they try to dim your light. They think tearing you down will save them from the truth about themselves. They attack because they can't influence you. They whisper because they can't intimidate you. They plot because they can't predict you. And they break because they can't stop you. They see the signs the universe put around you even before you recognize them. They notice the way opportunities bend toward you, the way people gravitate to you, the way every challenge you face somehow transforms you instead of destroying you. They see the strength they wish they had, the resilience they pretend to possess, and the potential they know they'll never reach. That's why they try so hard to silence you. But what they forget is the chosen ones don't get silenced. They get sharpened. Still, let's be honest with ourselves. There were moments when you doubted, nights where you stared at the ceiling, wondering why life felt so heavy. Days where their words crept into your mind. Moments you questioned your purpose. But here's the part you forgot. Chosen ones get tested the hardest because they carry the most powerful energy. The universe doesn't hand this kind of fire to someone who can't handle it. The pressure wasn't punishment, it was preparation. And while they were busy trying to break you, the universe was busy building you. You were learning patience while they were wasting time. You were growing silently while they were loudly trying to pull you down. You were evolving while they were throwing childish attacks. You were becoming someone they'd soon be powerless against, whether they liked it or not. The funniest part is that your silence hurts them more than any comeback ever could, because silence from a chosen one is never weak. It's deliberate. It's strategic. It's a message. It tells them, I'm not lowering myself to fight you. You're not on my level. And nothing destroys an enemy faster than realizing they don't even qualify to be your opponent. You're not here to battle every critic. You're not here to argue with jealous souls. You're not here to reply to every hater or explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You're here to rise. And when you rise, they fall automatically. They fall under the weight of their own insecurity. They fall under the pressure of watching you become everything they said you'd never be. They fall because they spent their energy trying to stop someone who was never going to stop. Chosen one, your presence is the storm they can't predict and the calm they can't break. You are the type of force that makes people rethink their entire existence. And deep down you already know this. You just forgot for a moment. But you're remembering now. You're remembering that your enemies are temporary. Your power is permanent. Your silence is lethal. Your rise is inevitable. And the moment you fully step into what you are, every enemy that barked at you will vanish like dust in sunlight. Not because you defeated them, they defeat themselves trying to fight what the universe already chose. And chosen one, since you're still here. It tells me you're not just curious, you're locked in. You feel the pull. You feel the shift. You feel that this message is not random. It's meant for you. Before we go any further, take a second to power up this mission. Hit like, hit subscribe, and drop 777 in the comments to show the universe you're ready to silence every enemy without lifting a finger. And if you want to boost the force behind this message, you can bless the team with a super thanks. It doesn't matter if it's a penny or a mountain, it all fuels the rise of chosen ones across the world. This message exists because of people like you who refuse to hide their light. Now breathe for a moment and lock in. What's coming next isn't just information. It's the part that flips the entire script of your life. If you're truly chosen, you'll feel it pulling you to stay until the very last word. The universe lined this up for a reason. Let's get into it step by step. Number 1. A real king doesn't descend to the level of clowns. Enemies don't crumble when you speak. They crumble when you stop treating them as equals. That's the punch they never recover from. Because nothing hits a jealous hater harder than realizing the chosen one doesn't even acknowledge their existence. The silence is what destroys them. Your refusal to argue, react, or defend yourself becomes a mirror they can't tolerate. It shows them exactly who they are: small, loud, and powerless. And nothing terrifies a fool more than being exposed without you saying a single word. They threw everything at you because they thought you'd fight back. They needed your reaction like oxygen. They wanted you tangled in their noise, wasting your time, draining your energy, lowering yourself to their level. That's how fools win. Not with intelligence or strength, but by dragging giants into the mud. But you didn't go down there. You stayed on your throne. And that silence smashed their ego with more force than any argument ever could. Think about it. When was the last time the ocean argued with a raindrop? When was the last time a wildfire asked a spark for permission? When did the universe ever pause to explain why it moves? Power doesn't explain, power doesn't debate, power simply exists, and its existence alone resets the entire environment. That's you. Your presence does more damage than their words ever could. And don't pretend you didn't feel it. The moment you walk into a room, the atmosphere shifts. People get quieter. Eyes lock onto you without meaning to. They sense something they can't articulate, a kind of force that doesn't need validation. And what does a fool do when they meet something bigger than their ego can comprehend? They lash out. They whisper. They invent stories. They poke and prod, hoping you'll break character. They want you to slip, to react, to prove you're just like them. But you didn't. You stayed composed. You stayed solid. You stayed exactly what they feared. Untouchable. Here's the truth you need to swallow whole. Their hatred was never about your actions. It was always about your identity. They felt something ancient inside you, something sharp, something they weren't built to handle. Your confidence threatened their fragility. Your silence threatened their lies. Your power threatened their illusion of control. That's why they acted out. That's why they screamed. That's why they threw every insecurity they had at you like cheap stones at a mountain. And in those moments, you might have wondered, my me. Why do they target me? Why do people who barely know me react like I've personally offended them? The answer is simple. Because chosen ones don't need to do anything for insecure souls to feel exposed. Your existence alone pulls the mask off every fake around you. People can sense destiny even before you understand it yourself. They can feel when someone carries weight the world can't measure. That's why they study you. That's why they imitate you. That's why they envy you. But here's where fools lose the game every time. They confuse your silence with weakness. They assume you're quiet because you're scared, unsure, or vulnerable. They mistake your calm energy for passivity. They think your restraint is hesitation. Meanwhile, the universe is building a version of you that will silence them permanently. They don't understand that chosen ones don't fight meaningless battles. You conserve your power. You move when it matters. And fools hate that kind of discipline because they have none. Let them talk. Let them project. Let them perform. You don't need to lower your voice. You just need to raise your standards. And your standards are already choking them. Remember this. Fools scream because they don't matter. Kings stay silent because they don't need to convince anyone. Your throne speaks louder than your mouth ever could. Your presence alone is a declaration. Your aura is a courtroom. Your energy is the verdict. And the sentence for every enemy is the same. Irrelevance. Look at their behavior. It tells you everything. If you were truly insignificant, they wouldn't watch you this closely. They wouldn't imitate your style. They wouldn't monitor your every move. They wouldn't hate you with this much intensity. People don't obsess over nobodies. They obsess over threats. The louder they act, the more afraid they are. Their hate is the greatest compliment you'll ever receive. And chosen one, ask yourself, why do they always make the first move? Why do they try so hard to get a reaction? Why are they always pressed over someone who isn't pressed about them? Because fools need chaos to feel alive. They need drama to distract themselves from their failures. They need conflict to stay relevant. Without you, they have nothing to talk about, nothing to attack, nothing to feed their empty identity. You are their oxygen, and when you withdraw it, they suffocate. That's why your silence is lethal. You silence them by refusing to participate in their nonsense. You silence them by continuing to level up while they stay stuck. You silence them by choosing peace while they choose pettiness. You silence them by winning quietly, consistently, and fearlessly. You silence them by being the person they prayed you'd never become. They wanted you emotional. You became strategic. They wanted you broken. You became disciplined. They wanted you insecure. You became unstoppable. And that transformation is the part that burns them alive. Every time you rise, they witness the proof that their attacks failed. Every time you heal, they realize they never had real power over you. Every time you upgrade, their illusions collapse. Your success is the revenge they can't escape, because they have to watch it unfold in real time. This is why fools break when kings rise. There's no comeback from that. Understand this deeply. You don't silence enemies by fighting them. You silence enemies by becoming someone they'll never reach in their lifetime. You silence fools by elevating so high that they can only look up and choke on their own envy. You silence them by living a reality they aren't built to survive. And the universe, it's not neutral in your journey. It aligns with you. It moves for you. It clears paths for you that others can't walk. That's why fools fall apart when they see you growing. They can't understand why everything eventually works in your favor. They think you have some secret advantage, and they're right. You do. It's called being chosen. But chosen isn't about ego or entitlement. It's about responsibility. It's about knowing that your energy is too rare to be wasted on people who will never understand it. It's about moving with intention instead of reacting out of emotion. It's about recognizing that your destiny doesn't require audience approval. Fools make noise. Kings make moves. And you, chosen one, were never meant to argue with those beneath your level. You were meant to rise so high that their voices fade into static. You were meant to let your existence be the final blow. You were meant to show them what real power looks like when it stops entertaining weak opponents. So hold your silence like a sword. Walk with the confidence of someone who doesn't need permission to exist. Move like a force that doesn't apologize for taking up space. Let the throne speak for you, because it already is. The fools have screamed. The fools have thrown their stones. The fools have shown their fear. Now watch them crumble under the weight of your rise. Your silence isn't weakness. It's the weapon that will end every enemy forever. Number 2. The sun never says sorry for setting the world on fire. Your glow isn't the problem. Their weak eyes are. That's the kind of sentence that slices straight through every enemy, choking on their envy. Because the truth is, chosen one, you've never done anything wrong. You've simply existed loudly in a world full of people who only feel big when someone around them shrinks. And you refuse to shrink. That one decision is what burns them alive every single day. Another quote they need to hear like a slap. People curse the sun only when they're too fragile to handle the heat. Your only crime was being brighter than the excuses they hide behind. You didn't attack them. You didn't compete with them. You didn't try to expose them. Your presence did all of that automatically. And that's why they hate you, because you shine without permission, without apology, and without asking the shadows how they feel. Imagine this. You walk into a room and conversations freeze. Not because you're loud, but because your energy hits harder than any words could. The insecure ones shift in their seats. The jealous ones look everywhere except at you. The pretenders suddenly feel like their masks are melting. That's the effect of real power. Not bragging, not shouting, just existing. Another scene. Picture a torch walking into a room full of paper. The paper isn't brave, the paper isn't strong, but it sure collapses fast. That's your enemies. They combust around you, then blame you for the fire. And here's another metaphor they'll never admit cuts them. Imagine a diamond placed next to broken glass. The glass starts screaming that the diamond is too much, too shiny, too sharp, hoping someone will believe both objects are the same. That's exactly why they called you arrogant, extra, intimidating, cold, distant, whatever label helped them feel safer. But the truth, they never stood a chance next to you, and they knew it. Let's hit them with one more quote. Your existence exposes lies they've been telling themselves for years. They built entire identities on fake confidence, fake strength, fake self-worth. Then you showed up, and suddenly they couldn't hold their little illusions anymore. You didn't try to ruin them. You just stood there, and everything they faked collapsed. And I know at some point you probably sat there wondering, why do people get so triggered by me? Why do they misjudge me before I even speak? Why do they act defensive when I haven't done anything? Because insecure people respond to energy, not actions. They can sense something in you they don't have, and instead of admiring it, they panic. They attack what they don't understand. They called you arrogant, not because you're full of yourself, but because you don't bow to people who expect you to. They called you lucky, not because your path is easy, but because they never saw the work you put in when no one was watching. They called you intimidating, not because you're aggressive, but because your spirit can't be manipulated. They called you detached, not because you don't care, but because you refuse to beg for validation. But chosen one, here's the actual truth wrapped in a fact that hits like a hammer. You weren't created to fit their comfort level. You weren't built to dim your light so someone else could pretend they were glowing. The universe wired you differently. And people who lack depth will always misread depth as danger. Imagine a sunflower apologizing for growing taller than weeds. Sounds ridiculous, right? That's how ridiculous it would be for you to shrink so someone else can feel taller. And yet your enemies hoped you would. They prayed you would. They waited for it, but you didn't. And that is why their jealousy is eating them alive like acid. Their insecurities are suffocating them. Their envy is poisoning their mind. Their resentment is aging them faster than time ever could. And none of this is your problem. But all of it is your presence exposing what was already broken inside them. Another. Imagine this moment. Imagine a lighthouse. It stands there silently doing its job. Boats depend on it. The ocean respects it. Even the storms bow to it. But the only thing that hates the lighthouse is the darkness, because the light destroys its illusion. You are that lighthouse, and your enemies, they're the darkness that can't survive in your presence. Now let's go deeper into what's really happening inside the minds of these people who can't handle you. They fear what they can't influence. They envy what they can't become. They attack what they can't understand. And they mock what exposes their weakness. They weren't threatened by your actions. Those are predictable. They were threatened by your potential, because that's limitless. They saw the way you move with purpose. They saw the way people respect you without you begging for it. They saw the discipline that hides behind your calm demeanor. They saw the fire you don't even fully recognize yet, and they panicked. So they tried to rewrite your identity. They tried to reduce you to an insult. They tried to put you in a box labeled too much. They hoped the world would see you through their insecure eyes. But the universe doesn't reshape truth just to accommodate someone's insecurity. It reveals it. And what gets revealed is simple. Your strength carries more weight than their narratives ever will. Here's a hard truth most won't say out loud. They resented you because you weren't dependent on them. You didn't chase their approval. You didn't rely on their validation. You didn't fall apart when they withdrew their presence. You made decisions without needing their input. You grew without asking for permission. And the moment someone realizes they don't hold influence over your survival, their ego starts to fracture. So they compensate. They distort what they can't control. They turn your confidence into arrogance. They frame your calm as coldness. They label your boundaries as selfishness. They try to make you doubt the very traits that made you strong. But chosen one, remember this clearly. You are not accountable for the discomfort of those who feel threatened by your elevation. They were never the real obstacle. Their inner instability was. Your presence simply reflects what they refuse to face. Your energy exposes what they try to hide. Your progress highlights everything they avoided confronting. They feared your becoming long before you fully stepped into it. Some even tried to limit you early, sensing that one day you would rise beyond the roles they placed you in. And they weren't mistaken. You are already moving past them. While they watch, you're gaining clarity, direction, discipline, and alignment. Things they struggle to maintain. Think of it like this. The sun does not dim itself, so shadows feel safer. If it did, everything would lose balance, growth would stop, and life itself would weaken. In the same way, you were never meant to reduce yourself to make others comfortable. Your presence is not a danger to the world. It's only overwhelming to those who were never aligned with your level. Chosen one, the sun doesn't apologize for its light, and neither will you. Those who cannot stand your intensity will step aside. Those who are meant for your path will rise alongside you. Those who fear your power will expose themselves trying to dim it. But you just shine. Because your light will silence every enemy forever, and they'll fall one by one. Not because you attack them, but because they can't exist in a world where truth stands tall. You don't need to lift a finger. You don't need to respond. You don't need to justify anything. Your existence is enough to make them fold. And that's exactly why you're chosen. Number 3. The fake ones always crack first. Every enemy betrays themselves long before they ever touch you. That's the punch they never saw coming. Because snakes don't stay hidden when the ground starts shaking under the feet of a chosen one. The moment your energy rises, their masks split, their smiles twitch, their voices shift, their jealousy hisses through every fake compliment they throw at you. They think they're subtle, but insecurity is loud, and envy always leaks. Here's the truth they hate the most. You never had to hunt for snakes. Your presence pulls them out. Imagine walking through a field. Everything looks calm on the surface. But when power steps forward, the grass moves. The creatures hiding inside panic. They expose themselves, trying to keep up with the vibration you naturally carry. That's why you keep catching people slipping. That's why their fake loyalty cracks the moment you step into your potential. They weren't solid. They were scared. And you might have asked yourself, why do people switch up on me the moment I start winning? Why do I keep seeing their true colors? Because greatness acts like a spotlight. It reveals what darkness tries to hide. When you level up, you activate the insecurities they spent years burying. Their envy boils over. Their whispers turn sloppy. Their fake kindness starts glitching. They can't help it. You didn't expose them. Their own weakness did. Imagine a mirror placed in front of someone who's been lying about who they are. They'll avoid eye contact, then get mad at the mirror. That's exactly what these people do to you. You don't attack them. You simply reflect the truth they've been running from. and that truth terrifies them more than anything. Another fact they can't stand. Their obsession with you is the very thing that destroys them. The more they watch you, the more they reveal their motives. The more they study you, the more obvious their jealousy becomes. They dig their own grave while you just keep moving forward. You never had to fight them. You never needed to expose them. Chosen ones don't chase snakes. They rise, and the hiss gives everything away. Your silence ruins them. Your growth exposes them. Your power ends them. Number 4. The moment you master your emotions, their power dies. Nothing scares an enemy more than the silence of someone they used to control. That line alone is enough to make every manipulator swallow their pride. Because the second you stopped reacting, their entire strategy collapsed. These people weren't strong. They were just feeding off your emotional responses like parasites pretending to be predators. And when you cut off that supply, they didn't just lose control, they lost their identity. Let's make something clear. They didn't want peace. They wanted access. They wanted your reactions, because your reactions made them feel significant. Imagine a puppeteer yanking strings with confidence, but suddenly the puppet slips off the wires and stands on its own legs. The puppeteer doesn't look powerful anymore. They look pathetic, exposed, irrelevant. That's exactly what happened the day you stopped letting people play with your emotions. And maybe you wondered, why do they get so angry when I stay calm? Why do they call me cold now? Because calm terrifies people who were only strong when you were weak. Emotional detachment isn't cold. It's clarity. It's strength. It's the removal of their access point. They can't manipulate what they can't trigger. Another metaphor for them to choke on. Imagine a remote control with dead batteries. You press the buttons, but nothing moves. You shake it, hit it, scream at it, but the device stays still because the power source has left. That's you. You took your energy back. And now they're pounding on buttons that don't work anymore. Here's another fact they hate. The moment you stopped caring about their approval, you became untouchable. People can only control you through the emotions you give them. Anger gives them fuel. Sadness gives them leverage. Fear gives them dominance. But indifference is the end game. It starves them. It shuts the door they kept sneaking through. It removes their weapon entirely. Imagine a storm trying to intimidate a mountain. The wind screams, the rain pounds, the lightning strikes, but the mountain doesn't move. That's what emotional control turns you into. A force, a structure, a presence that can't be shifted by noise. They call you heartless because they can no longer access your heart. But chosen one, that isn't coldness, that is liberation. That is peace. That is power. And the moment you mastered your emotions, every enemy lost theirs. Number 5. The insecure always break under real light. People don't hate the sun. They just hate how small it makes their shadows look. That truth alone is enough to make every jealous soul flinch, because your light didn't offend them, it exposed them. The moment you stepped into your confidence, every dim flame around you started trembling, panicking, scrambling to protect the lies they built about themselves. You didn't attack them. You didn't challenge them. You didn't even notice them. But your energy did what their ego couldn't survive. It revealed the truth. Imagine a spotlight turning on in a room full of people hiding their flaws. Some will stand proud. Others will run, and the ones who run are always the ones who hated you most. Not because you hurt them, but because you reminded them of everything they refused to fix. Your strength highlighted their weakness. Your honesty exposed their masks. Your direction made their stagnation impossible to ignore. And you've probably wondered, why do they react so intensely to my glow? Why do I trigger people without saying a word? Because people who lack depth feel threatened by anyone who carries real substance. They thought confidence was a performance. You showed them it's a lifestyle. They thought authenticity was a trend. You showed them it's a backbone. They thought discipline was optional. You showed them its identity. Imagine a candle trying to compete with the sun. It flickers harder, burns faster, melts quicker, and still loses. That's your enemies. They push, brag, boast, pretend, and still suffocate when your presence enters the room. They hate your light because it burns through their illusions. They hate your freedom because it exposes their fear. They hate your rise because it highlights their refusal to evolve. Here's a reality they choke on. They don't hate you. They want to be you. They envy the confidence you carry naturally. They envy the way you move without fear. They envy the way the universe bends opportunities toward you. Their jealousy is loud because their self-worth is quiet. Let them drown in their bitterness while you keep rising. Never dim your light for people who can't survive daylight. Your glow is meant to silence every enemy forever. Shine harder, shine louder, shine without apology. Number 6. No shadow can outrun the light that created it. Your enemies aren't obstacles, they're proof you're glowing. That alone is enough to make every hater choke on their bitterness, because a shadow only appears when something bright is moving forward. They thought their whispers, rumors, and cheap tricks could slow you down, but all they did was confirm the power they were trying so hard to deny. Shadows don't stop the sun, they follow it, terrified. Imagine you walking forward and the darkness behind you scrambling to keep up, stretching, twisting, trying to look bigger than it actually is. That's your enemies. They don't block your path. They cling to it, hoping you'll mistake their noise for real influence. But a shadow can't touch you. It can't grab you. It can't hurt you. It exists because of you, not the other way around. And maybe you've asked yourself, why do they keep trying to stop me if they always fail? Because weak people confuse annoyance with power. They think throwing negativity at you counts as resistance. They've convinced themselves they're storms when they're barely a cold breeze. Meanwhile, you're a walking sunrise, a mountain that doesn't budge, a force that doesn't negotiate. You don't collapse when challenged. You expand. Picture a skyscraper standing tall while tiny birds slam into the windows, thinking they made an impact. That's what their schemes look like from the universe's point of view. Pathetic, temporary, forgettable. Their energy drains them because it comes from insecurity. Your energy builds worlds because it comes from alignment, purpose, and momentum. Another truth for them to swallow. When you're built from strength, you don't move for noise. They scream because they're powerless. You stay steady because you know exactly who you are. They collapse under the weight of their own envy. You rise because it's in your nature. Shadows fade, darkness retreats, weakness exhausts itself. But real light keeps going, keeps rising, keeps burning through every lie thrown at it. You are eternal. They are temporary, and no matter how loud their noise gets, it will never stop the sun from rising. Number 7. Real predators don't warn their prey. Your silence hit harder than any attack you could have launched. That truth alone turns every enemy's stomach inside out because they weren't prepared for you to stop barking back. They thought provoking you was the path to power. They thought noise equaled control. But wolves don't bark. Wolves move in silence. And when they do, something gets torn apart. Your silence wasn't weakness. It was the moment the battlefield flipped in your favor. Imagine this: a wolf walking through the forest, calm and focused. Birds scream, small animals panic, branches snap under the weight of creatures trying to look intimidating. But the wolf, it doesn't respond. It doesn't flinch. It doesn't bark back at things it could destroy with one move. That's you. Your enemies were the forest noise, loud, desperate, shaky, and your silence reminded them they were never a threat, just background sound. And maybe you wondered, why did they freak out when I stopped talking? Why did silence make them act even crazier? Because silence forces insecure people to hear their own thoughts. Suddenly they're trapped with their jealousy, their fear, their obsession. They spiral because the noise they wanted from you is gone, and now they're stuck drowning in their own. They needed your reaction to feel relevant. Without it, they collapse. Another metaphor. Picture a mirror dropped in front of someone who spent their whole life lying about who they are. The silence in that reflection is brutal. It exposes them in ways no argument ever could. Your silence did exactly that. It showed them themselves. And trust me, they hated what they saw. Here's a fact they'll never admit. Indifference is the final kill shot. They expected you to fight, to defend, to explain, to validate their existence. Instead, you treated them like the dust beneath your feet. That's why they panicked. That's why they spiraled. That's why they pushed harder. They weren't fighting you. They were fighting the reality that they never mattered to you in the first place. Your silence was the strike. Your calm was the attack. Your indifference was the victory. And there is no greater humiliation for an enemy than realizing you defeated them without even lifting a finger. Number 8. The trapped always resent the one who escapes. Controlled people don't hate your wings. They hate the reminder that they never grew their own. That truth alone shakes every insecure soul to their core, because your freedom exposes the cage they built around themselves. They never feared your actions. They feared your independence. They feared the fact that you can't be steered, guilt-tripped, or manipulated like they hoped. And once you broke out of their grasp, their entire illusion of power shattered. Imagine this: a bird that's lived in a cage its whole life, watching another bird tear through the sky like it owns the wind. The caged one doesn't clap. It doesn't celebrate. It doesn't admire. It gets angry. Not because the flying bird did anything wrong, but because the sight of freedom hurts trapped people more than any insult ever could. That's exactly what your enemies feel when they look at you. Pain, envy, and a deep fear that they'll never reach your level. And I know you've wondered, why do they act like I've offended them just by existing? Why does my independence trigger them? Because people who rely on control see free spirits as a threat, not a person. You represent everything they can't handle: self-respect, self-direction, self-power. You don't fold under pressure. You don't bend to expectations. You don't shrink to fit their narrative. That's why they try to guilt you, shame you, or box you in. Control is the only language weak minds speak. Picture this metaphor. Imagine unlocking your door and stepping into the world while someone behind you keeps rattling a locked door, screaming for you to come back inside. That's them. They can't leave their cage, so they try to drag you into it. But you moved on. You kept walking. And that's what destroys them. Another fact that breaks them in half. Real power doesn't need permission. You never asked for approval to shine. You never begged anyone to understand your greatness. You never apologized for thinking bigger than their limitations. And that freedom, that self-contained strength, It burns them alive. They resent you because your mind is open while theirs is locked shut. They resent you because your spirit moves where theirs can't. They resent you because you proved that freedom is a choice, and they chose fear. Let them hate. Let them cling to their cages. You were never born to live behind bars. You were built to fly, chosen one. And the sky doesn't apologize to those who refuse to leave the ground. Number 9. A freed beast rewrites the entire food chain. A lion in a cage is still dangerous, but a lion that remembers the door was never locked becomes unstoppable. That truth hits every enemy like a slap to the soul, because they never feared the version of you they could intimidate. They feared the moment you realized you never needed their approval, their validation, or their permission to exist. They feared the moment you stopped acting tamed. They tried to chain your mind, not your body. That's the trick of small people. They don't need real cages when they can build mental ones. They fed you doubt. They whispered fear. They made you question your own instincts. They wanted you to see yourself through their cheap, cracked mirror. They hoped you'd stay confused, dependent, and emotionally underfed. Because the longer you stayed inside their illusion, the safer they felt. But chosen one, imagine this. A lion pacing in a cage, thinking the lock is unbreakable. Then one day, it nudges the door, and it swings open like it was never secured. That moment of realization, that's the moment you are in. The fear evaporates, the doubt dissolves, the truth hits. You were powerful the entire time. The only prison that existed was the one they tried to build inside your mind. And maybe you've asked yourself, why were they so desperate to keep me small? Why did they need me to believe I needed them? Because your dependence was their only power. Weak souls don't thrive on strength. They thrive on control. They need you doubting, hesitating, second-guessing yourself. Once you break that spell, they have nothing left to offer, nothing to hold you with, nothing to manipulate. Another metaphor to make it hit deeper. Imagine a circus trainer holding a whip in front of a lion that has already forgotten its strength. The trainer isn't brave. The lion is simply conditioned. But the moment the lion remembers what it is, the whip becomes irrelevant. The trainer becomes irrelevant. The whole damn circus becomes irrelevant. That's exactly why your enemies panic now. You remembered who you are. Here's a fact they don't want to admit. The moment you reclaim your mind, every chain they used becomes dust. You stopped asking for permission. You stopped waiting for validation. You stopped playing nice to keep them comfortable. And that shift alone turned you from manageable to mythic. You became limitless the day you stopped shrinking yourself to fit spaces that were never worthy of your presence. You stepped out of their narrative and into your destiny, and that one move completely destroyed the illusion they depended on. Now they're terrified, not because you're attacking them, but because you're finally unreachable. You don't respond, you don't react, you don't retreat. You're moving with the force of someone who knows their worth. And nothing is scarier to an insecure person than a chosen one who's done explaining themselves. You weren't born to be tamed. You weren't born to bow. You weren't born to exist inside anyone's limits. You were born to transcend them. A caged lion is still a threat. A freed one becomes the king of everything it touches. And now that you've stepped out of the mental cage they built around you, you're not just dangerous, you're destiny in motion. And no enemy alive can stand in the path of a chosen one who finally remembers their strength. Number 10. The weak can flicker, but real power never goes dark. Small minds burn out. Real ones blaze eternally. That line alone crushes every enemy who tried to size themselves up next to you. because deep down they know the truth. You're not a candle they can blow out. You're the sun they can't escape. They study you, they stalk you, they mimic every move you make, but none of it fills the emptiness inside them. Your strength doesn't intimidate them because it's loud. It intimidates them because it's effortless. Imagine this: a tiny candle shaking in the wind, desperately trying to stay lit. Then imagine the sun rising behind it. The candle doesn't die because the sun attacks it. It dies because it realizes the light it tried to imitate is impossible to match. That's your enemies. They copy your style, your confidence, your voice, your attitude, yet they still look dull. Because imitation can't replace identity. And I know you've wondered, why do they obsess over me? Why do they keep watching me? Because every insecure soul studies what they wish they could become. They don't fear you. They fear the weakness your presence exposes. You're a walking reminder that they had the same 24 hours and still chose excuses. That truth cuts sharper than any comeback you could ever give. Picture this: someone tracing a masterpiece, hoping the world won't notice the shaky lines. That's them imitating you. They try to copy your confidence but fail because theirs isn't rooted in truth. They attempt to imitate your discipline, but it never lasts because theirs was only for show. They try to copy your voice, your rhythm, your presence, yet it falls flat every time. Because what you carry was never about appearance. It comes from inner harmony, not surface imitation. And here's what truly unsettles them. Just being you already communicates something they cannot translate. No need for debate, no need for justification, no need to broadcast your strength. It's already written into your energy, placed there by something higher, and no amount of envy can rewrite it. Their resentment always turns against them. Every attempt to undermine you only reveals their own intentions. Every rumor they spread makes them smaller. Every hidden plan drains their own momentum. While they spiral in their own energy, you continue forward because you are not driven by pride, but by alignment. And what is aligned cannot be taken away. Picture the universe as a perfect balance. It does not reward disorder. It does not elevate jealousy. It does not support those who act from fear. But you operate differently, from clarity, from purpose, from steady forward motion. That is why what belongs to you never misses you. That is why obstacles turn into strength. That is why those who oppose you eventually fall under the weight of their own bitterness. Nothing can block what was designed to rise. Nothing can weaken what was meant to lead. Nothing can compete with what was created to dominate its path. You are not temporary, not a passing phase, not a small spark in the dark. You are something enduring. Others may copy, fade, break or disappear, but your fire doesn't negotiate with time. It continues. And now, as this message reaches its end, hold on to what you've realized. You've seen your own strength more clearly and the limits of everything that tried to hold you back. This is your turning point, to rise with more clarity, more intensity, and more power than before. If this resonates, support the message. And if you're staying on this path, stay connected so you don't miss what comes next. Your ascent has only begun.